everyone, my name's Angel and welcome back to my corner of the internet. This video's drama is going to be Boys Over Flowers, and the only reason I watched it, fun fact, is because one of my friends who was taking a Korean class here had to do a project where he created a script with the characters from Boys Over Flowers, and he was our resident asshole character. That being said, wonderful transition, we're gonna start with our characters. So our main character, I remembered the names of most of these ones. So our main character is Chandi. She has a job and she's obviously a student. Her hobbies involve swimming and trying to keep her household together. And then we have Carl. She is the main character's best friend. They work together. They did go to school together, but now they don't. So we have the F4. That's what they're called. They are your popular boys. Like, they're on top of the world. Can't nobody touch them, alright? We have Junpyo. He is our main love interest in the story and also the leader of F4. We have Jihu, who is like second, I don't want to say second in command because technically they don't have one of those, but he's the second most prevalent F4 member to plot. And then F3 and F4, whose names I sometimes forget. One of them is Woobin. He is also known as F4 because I will forget his name. And F3, whose name I think is Yisung. That's what it is. It's Yisung. So if I say F3 and Yisung, they're the same person. And then F4 is Woobin. I will use them interchangeably and I apologize for that, but this is your warning. Then we have our female secondary characters. We have a trio whose names are Ginger, Sunny, and Miranda. They have Korean names, but they go by Ginger, Sunny, and Miranda. I don't know how that happened. I don't know when that happened. They're basically like the mean girls. That's all for characters, and now on to plot. Boys Over Flowers has a very interesting beginning. It starts with the main character. She's delivering uniforms that he has dry cleaned to a university called Shinhwa High. Or not a university, hello, it's a high school. But they have a university. They have like K through, I guess, graduate. I don't know if their university has a graduate program. It is a very elite private school. Everyone there is bougie in their money bags or whatever, or their parents are. They're not. Usually they don't have their own businesses. She's delivering uniforms to the school on a bicycle. And there's this crowd like looking up at a building and like kikiing with each other like, oh my god, do you think he gonna do it? So she looks up and there's a guy. She jumps into action, makes her way up to the roof of the building. How she got up there that quick, I'm not really sure, but she got up there and she tried to talk him down. She initially tried distracting him by talking about dry cleaning. I don't even know if the uniform she was delivering was for him. It didn't work. Her distractions didn't work. So he was like, LOL, thanks, but I'm a dip. And he tells her why he wants to jump off the building, which I'll get to in a minute. And then he jumps. And I don't know what kind of Hulk strength this child has, but she like leaps forward and like grabs him by his shirt and like pulls him against the building. So like he's still dangling over the edge, but he doesn't die. So as to why he was gonna jump off the roof. So the F4, like I said, kind of are above everyone. They rule the school because Junpyo's mom owns the school. Like she owns the entire franchise, all of the Shinhwa everything. And Shinhwa doesn't just do schools. They obviously have like business ventures. They kind of all over the place. They do any and everything you can think of. So Junpyo gets to do whatever the hell he wants because his mom is the chairman, which involves like bullying students apparently, and like not directly, like they have these cards. If you do something to piss off the F4, a little red card about this big will appear in your locker with a skull and crossbones and the letter F with the 4 next to it, and the entire school suddenly takes to bullying the hell out of you. For this guy in particular, when I say bully, I'm not talking like, haha, you're a dork. They were chasing him around the school with hockey sticks and like beating the crap out of him every day. It was insane. It's valid that he like wants to die to get out of the situation, but I feel like there were other steps he could take. And I mean, he doesn't die because she saves him, and that makes headlines that this random girl is saving this kid who goes to Shinhwa. And then parents start to get mad and like talking bad about the school because, I mean, this wonderful elite school that everyone wants their child child to go to has a bullying problem. Basically, everyone's kind of like outraged because they're like, what's going on behind closed doors of this elitist school if our kids who are going there still want to die? So the chairman, Junpyo's mom, her solution to this problem, because the school is getting a bunch of negative traction, is to invite the main character to attend the school, because for some reason that is her solution. So she sends her little assistant guy to her house to talk to her parents about getting her to attend, and at first she's like, no, I don't want to go there. I like my school, and everyone at this school is apparently an asshole. Like, why would I put myself in that situation? Why would I want to be put in that situation? And her parents, because prestige and elitism, are like, girl, if you don't go. They offer her a swimming scholarship. Like I said, her hobbies include swimming, and this school has a huge swimming pool because it's a bougie private school. And her parents force her to go despite her protests. And on her first day, she's trying to find her classroom. She's minding her business, and all of a sudden, one particular student is like, the F4 is here! And then there's a like crowd that rushes the front door and like makes a semicircle around the school entrance as the F4 walks in like the freaking supermodels. It's really weird. And then Junpyo walks up to this kid unprovoked and turns to, I think Isung is the one who had it. He turns to Isung. He's like, hey, you still got that juice you were drinking? And it looks like tomato juice. Maybe it was a V8. It was a little thick to be like regular juice. He took the juice from Isung and he takes it and he pours it down this poor kid's uniform shirt for no reason. Everyone's kind of like, ooh. And like the kid's two friends try to like get him out of the situation. And Jandi is like, wow, he's an asshole. Like, he's a terrible human being. And this is where we meet our three feminine antagonists, I guess. Jandi is like talking to herself, and Ginger's first line is, oh my god. Okay, Valley girl, hello? But then the rest of the conversation continues in Korean, and I'm like, so why did she... Like, I know it's common for K-dramas to throw in random English phrases, but like, why did she say it like that? So then Ginger, Sunny, and Miranda introduce themselves, because Ginger is like, how could you say that about them? They're like, they're the flower four, they're the most important people in this school, and this, that, and the third, yada, yada, yada. And she's like, so who the hell are you? Question mark. To which they introduce themselves as though they are like the Powerpuff Girls. They each do like a power stance, like they're in Totally Spies or something, and each of them says their very white name. They tell her she's not allowed to disrespect F4 like that, and they're like, we'll give you a pass because you're new here, but like watch what you say about them. And she's like, yeah, okay, anyway, lol, I'm gonna go to class. And then day 2, on her second day of school, the same thing happens again. Someone calls out that they're there. The whole school gathers around the entrance to watch them walk in. And this time, this poor sweet girl walks up to him with a cake. And she's like, I made you a cake. Please accept my gift. And then he throws it in her face. I don't know why he couldn't just declined. I felt so bad. And so did Jandi, and she didn't say anything. So the next scene is her swimming in this Olympic-sized swimming pool. And I would just like to point out, don't nobody else at that school use the swimming pool. I really, like, she's the only person I've ever seen in the swimming pool. And I don't know why they have a giant swimming pool if none of these rich kids are gonna swim. So she's swimming in this Olympic-sized swimming pool, and this girl who is named Minji comes up to her, and she's like, you're gonna get tired if you keep swimming. And Jandi is like, I'm punishing myself. And she's like, well, why? And she explains that it's because she didn't do anything when Junpyo threw a cake at that poor girl who didn't do anything to him to deserve that. And she's like, okay, well, do you feel better? And she's like, yeah. So now the two of them are friends, and the two of them go to lunch together, and they sit and they chillin', they eatin', and Miranda, Ginger, and Sunny, I said that so out of order, walk up to her again, and just like the first time, Ginger's first line in this scene is, oh my god. And they were just kind of chilling and eating their lunch. I don't know who told her to come over and cause a ruckus. She comes over and she's like, that smell is so bad, referring to Jandi's like packed lunch. Cause like they tell her just buy the school lunch. She's like, that is $50 freaking dollars. Do I look like I have $50 to spend on a school lunch? Cause the answer is no, I don't. And they like clown her a little bit for her lunch. And then Minji asks to try her food, and then the two of them are like having a ball, minding their business. business. In our next scene that like matters, the two of them are like walking around on campus eating ice cream. I don't know where it came from or like why. Minji is like walking and trips over insert object here. She doesn't really trip on anything. I guess she tripped over her own 2 feet, but she tripped, fell over, dropped her ice cream on somebody's shoe. That somebody was Junpyo. And this is our first interaction between Jandi and Junpyo, because he starts like causing a fit over the fact that she spilled ice cream on his shoe. And she's like, oh my god, I'm so sorry. I can like pay for it or whatever, get you a replacement. And he's like, these are one of a kind shoes, this, that, and the third. You couldn't even afford them if you tried. And eventually Jandi's like, okay, she apologized, get over yourself. And he's like, excuse you? Who the hell are you? Mind your business. And she's like, that's my friend, so this is officially my business. And she's apologized. What you want her to do? Are you done? Are you finished? He says the most ridiculous, like, it's honestly, this quote is kind of reaching just a little bit, because he says if apologies fixed everything, there wouldn't be need for police officers or the law. And I was like, murder and spilled ice cream are very different issues. And she's like, can you, like, seriously get over it? And he's like, I'll forgive her if you lick the ice cream off my shoe. And she, like, bends down as though she's going to lick his shoe. And then she, like, shoves an ice cream cone at him, and it, like, gets on his uniform or whatever. And then she throws, like, $40 at him. And she's like, if you want your uniform cleaned, bring it to my dad's. We'll dry clean it for you. She sticks like a business card on his forehead. So following that altercation, one of F4's little death cards appears in her locker, which you should have seen that one coming. And the school starts to bully her. It starts as like they like snatch her textbook off her desk and like lead her into the hallway, and then everyone like throws eggs and flour at her. She goes into like a random part of the school that I don't really know what it is, but there's like a balcony, and she goes up there and she starts cursing Junpyo's name because she's mad at his existence, because she knows that this is his fault. And she's like, they wasted all of these flowers, all this flour and these eggs that could have gone to like pancakes or something. For some reason, Jihoo is like around the corner, just kind of like chilling out of sight, and then he like appears behind her and she's like, oh, I was just bad mouthing your friend, my bad, homie. And then he asks her about pancakes. He wants to learn how to make pancakes, and so she like tells him the basic recipe of like pancakes, and he gives her his handkerchief to like wipe her face or whatever. A few other sequences happen. Junpyo puts trash in the swimming pool because again, she seems to be the only person who uses it. So she like cleans it all out, and she goes into the locker room to like change or whatever. And these two guys like corner her in the locker room, and she tried to get away and they like held her down, and I was like, oh, this is very quick, going to turn into an assault case. But then Jihoo to the frickin' rescue. He shows up and he like sees this happening, and they freeze because he's like one of the most popular guys in school. And he's like, oh, so we like tag teaming people now? Like, this is what we doing here? And they're like, we were told to do it. And Jihoo like squats down and he's like, my pancakes didn't turn out right. And she's like, can you like help me? Because they're still holding her down and he's asking her about pancakes. And he looks at them, he's like, why are you two still here? And then they scamper off like children. And then he asks her about the pancakes again, and she's like, I don't know, maybe you forgot baking powder or something. And he's like, okay, I'll give it a shot. And then she thanks him, and he's like, I didn't do it for you, I just hate those kind of people, that's really scummy. In the next scene, those guys are getting chewed out by Junpyo, because even though he sent them to scare her, he was like, yeah, I said scare her, not try to assault her. Granted, he shouldn't have sent two high school boys to try and scare her when she was alone in the locker room to begin with. They write a bunch of slurs on her desk, and she just kind of like braves it. At this point, she's kind of a little bit infatuated with Jihoo. And then on a day that I don't know how long she's been like going through it, but on a day, she walks into class and there's a dirty rag on her desk, and also some more slurs written either on a chalkboard or something, I don't know. There's an interaction between her and her classmates. She takes the dirty rag. F4 has like their own private lounge on campus. They're chilling in their little lounge, the four of them, kikiing, having a blast. And Jandi comes storming in with the dirty rag in her hand, and she throws it at Junpyo. The other three are kind of like, hello? And she's like, I have silently endured all of your BS thus far, but I'm sick of it. Keep playing games with me and you will die. I don't know why the dirty rag was her breaking point. He stands up. He's like, because he's like, he towers over her. So he's like, let me remind you that I am above you in every way, shape, or form. And she gets into this fighting stance, plants her feet firmly on the ground. And I'm thinking she's gonna like throw a left hook or whatever she roundhouse kicked him. And he like stumbles backwards. I think he actually falls over, if I remember correctly. And the other three are like stunned. Like Jihoo is speechless, and Isung and Woobin are like, they're like trying to laugh in secret because their friend just got roundhouse kicked by this girl who's like literally just started going there. For some reason, Junpyo translates this interaction as, oh my god, she has a crush on me. And the other three are like, run that back real fast. You said she what? And he's like, obviously she has a crush on me. She just doesn't want to admit that she likes me, so she's being extra mean to me. And they're like, yeah, okay. And they just kind of run with it, but they're like, oh, he crazy, huh? That's real wild. But none of them check him. They just kind of let him think that, right? And the next day she's at school kind of freaking out because she like realizes that she just roundhouse kicked the most popular boy in school who was already bullying her, but like from a distance, after he decides that she likes him because he's delusional. And then some like Men in Black type agents show up and they're like, are you Jandi? And she's like, yeah. And they're like, all right, bet, you gonna have to come with us. And she's like, actually I can't because I gotta go to work. And then she like runs. And then it's like a weird comical chase scene where they're trying to catch her and she's trying to evade them. And after like roughly 5 minutes and she thinks she's gotten away from them, they like pull up out of nowhere, snatch her up, drag her into a vehicle, and then chloroform her. And they take her to Junpyo's house. She doesn't react right away. She's like kind of complacent at this point. And then they like take her down the hall to a room where they dress her all up, make her look all pretty in like this fancy dress and these cute little heels. They do her hair and her makeup and give her all these fancy accessories. And then a butler shows up and he's like, hey, come with me. And she's like, are we still in Korea? And he's like, yeah, we still in Korea. She's like, okay, so are we at the Blue House, which is the equivalent of the White House in South Korea? And I checked, the roof of the building is blue, for those of you who don't know. He's like, no, this is not the Blue House. And she's like, okay, so where are we? And he's like, you'll see. They walk down the hall. He leads her into a room. He like ushers her in and she walks inside. And Junpyo is standing there and she's like, oh, what are you doing here? And he's like, girl, I live here. And she's like, okay, so what am I doing here? And he's like, it's okay, you can admit that you have a crush on me. And she's like, what? And he's like, well, it's okay that you have a crush on me. I'm gonna give you permission to say hi to me once a day and we can only talk when people are not around. And she's like, oh, you crazy, huh? Yeah, I don't want to talk to you. I would rather have fire ants crawling all over my body. And she's like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want anything to do with you. I don't know where you got this notion that I have a crush on you, but like I don't. And he's confused and she's like, give me back my uniform and my shoes so that I can freaking leave. And he does, and she leaves. And then he yells at his staff because he thinks that somewhere them prepping her for meeting him is what the issue with this plan really was. She puts on her uniform and she leaves, but she forgets to change her shoes. I guess they didn't give her shoes, so she's wearing the heels and she doesn't realize it until she's left his residence. She flings them off her feet and like over a fence, and there's a dog behind that fence, so someone starts barking. But again, Junpyo to the rescue out of literally nowhere. He shows up and is riding his little scooter and he's like, what you doing out here? And she like gives him a rundown of what happened, and he's like, why you always getting into trouble whenever I run into you? And in my head I'm like, man, that's your best friend's fault. Like, she's not doing this on purpose. He gives her an extra pair of sneakers that he just had in his backpack because she was walking home. And he's like, I don't want you to like screw up your feet. So here, she washes the shoes and she tries to return them to him the next day. So she goes to F4's little like private lounge or whatever. And he's not there. But Isung and Woobin are. And this is the first time we really get to interact with them because they're like, ooh, hey. And she's like, hi, I have something to return to Jihoo. And they're like, well, he's not here, but you know, you should stay and have some tea with us. And she's hesitant, but they're like, we like you because you challenge your best friend and that roundhouse kick was funny as hell, so we're gonna have a conversation, sit down, we're gonna drink some tea. They drink some tea, they kiki with each other, and then we find out that Jihoo got an interesting history. Jihoo has a fear of cars now because his parents died in a car accident when he was 3, and his grandfather abandoned him when he was like 4. A like family friend of sorts kind of took to raising him, whose name I don't remember. We're gonna call her the model because that's what she does, she models, and he's like in love with her, and I think it's sort of like an Oedipus kind of thing almost because she basically raised him. According to Isung and Woobin, she basically raised him, and then somewhere along the way it went from a mother-son relationship to him being in love with her. Skip a couple days, their school is planning on going on a cruise of some sort. There's like a class trip that's gonna be for like a week, but it costs like $2,000. Jandi doesn't have that kind of money, so she's not gonna go. She and Gao instead decide to like go to Jeju, I think, or something like that. Junpyo was expecting her to go on the trip. I don't know where he thought she was gonna fork up $2,000 to go and be with people she doesn't like who don't like her. And then when he found out she wasn't, I guess he like called someone up. He went, bring, where's she at? And they got to looking and they found her. And somehow, and I mean, I guess it has to do with the fact that his mom is the chairman, but this cruise liner found them while they were fishing. Although the logistics of this whole trip are a little bit unclear to me, because the students get on an airplane, right? So the assumption is that they left South Korea. When the boat shows up, like the cruise liner shows up and they're like chilling on their little boat having a good old dandy time, he says, we were tired of going to Switzerland. I was like, so how'd you get from Europe to South Korea? And why did you make the cruise liner? Like, how did you even get the cruise liner to do that? Don't you gotta like go around Africa for that? The cruise liner ended up wherever Jandi was with her BFF, sitting in the water minding their business and going fishing. And Junpyo was like literally just clowning her. She's like, can you go the hell away? Like, I'm not bothering you. I don't want to be bothered by you. So eventually the cruise liner turns around but also splashes them with water in the process. Jihoo didn't go on the cruise because the model was coming to town, and so he was going to the airport to pick her up. And like then we skip to the end of the day. Jandi and Kaul get off their little boat or whatever and they like dock or whatever. And for some reason, Junpyo, Jihoo, and the model, Ginger, Sunny, and Miranda are all there. And I think Isung and Woobin are also there, but like the rest of the class is not. I don't really know what's happening. I don't know how they all ended up in the same place, but they're all in the same place on like this dock. I don't know why Jihoo even brought the model here to begin with, but she here. Junpyo tells Jandi that the model is having like a party, and she's like, I would literally rather choke on a lobster. And then Jihoo's like, you should come if you have time. And she's like, okay, I'll be there. And Junpyo notices and he's not happy about that. Then Ginger, Sunny, and Miranda tell her that it's a costume party. It's not a costume party. Spoiler alert. So she shows up dressed as Wonder Woman and she walks in and she's like, oh, this is not a costume party. And so initially she's like, you know what, I'm gonna just keep my coat on. I think we're good. Ginger, Sunny, and Miranda walk up. Hey, what you looking like? And they like try to force her coat off of her, and she's trying to like not let them take it off, and she like knocks over a tray of hors d'oeuvres or whatever. Her jacket falls open anyway, so everyone like sees that she's dressed like Wonder Woman, and she's now covered in food. Jihoo jumps to the rescue, drapes a jacket over her. The model comes over and she's like, y'all are the most disrespectful, classless people like ever. Jihoo takes Jandi up to the model's room per the model's request, and then the model gives her a nice little dress and a cute little coat and does her makeup and her hair. The two of them bond for a hot minute, and then they go down, and the model walks over to Jihoo and is like, a gentleman never lets a lady dance on her own or like stand by herself or something. So Jihoo walks on over to Jandi and offers to dance with her, and Junpyo had planned to like try and woo her, and so Junpyo storms off like an 11-year-old and throws a literal tantrum, like he's flipping tables and chairs, and then he like stops destroying things for a hot second and he sees a cricket, and then the cricket jumps onto him, and homeboy apparently has insectophobia because he freaks out when the insect jumps onto him and falls into the pool. Did I mention that Junpyo can't swim? Wonder Boy can't do one thing and it's swim, which is later discovered that it has to do with the fact that he was kidnapped when he was like 2 years old and water was involved in said kidnapping, so he's afraid of the water and never learned how to swim. So Jandi like is tired of this stuffy party, so she walks out or whatever, and she happens to see homie, like someone else had like seen it and like got inside to get help, but Jandi was already springing into action and she like got him out of the water, and like she even did CPR incorrectly, but it doesn't matter because it's a drama. And then at some point he like wakes up, but he doesn't say anything at first, and then he makes a joke about her kissing him, so she slaps him and walks away. The model's story, that one wraps up a couple like episodes after she's introduced, when she at her birthday party announces that she's going to France, and Jihoo's like very upset because he thought that he was gonna have a chance with her. Junpyo starts doing like really random little practical jokes on her, like he puts petroleum jelly on a door handle in the locker room, and then he fills the pool with ducks, like actual live freaking ducks. I guess he has cameras on the school because he's watching her like freak out about the ducks in the pool, and he's like kikiing to himself, and I think Jihoo or maybe all of them walk in and they're like, what the hell are you doing? And he's like, I'm thanking her for like saving my life or whatever, and they're like, I don't think she's gonna take this very nicely, but I mean, go off, I guess. And she doesn't, obviously. At some some point the two of them like sort of start like talking to each other, and I mean like sort of like dating. They like hang out a couple times or whatever, and people assume that they're dating, and Minji has apparently had a crush on Junpyo for like literally ever. Like she confessed to him in first grade and he called her ugly. After Junpyo announced that the two of them were dating and so no one was allowed to bully her, Minji framed her as like having cheated on him by getting some random guy at a club to roofie her drink, take her back to a hotel room, and I don't even know if they fully undressed her, but they took like pictures of her in bed with another guy, and everyone was like, ooh, she a cheating little skank, and Junpyo definitely believed all of them and believed the photos, and the rest of F4 was like, yeah, we don't believe that that's true. And they went into investigating the situation, found out what really happened, told Junpyo the truth, who then obliterated Minji for it and apologized to Jandi, and now the two of them are back together. Fast forward a little while, eventually Junpyo's mom catches wind of the fact that they're dating, and she's not happy about it. And she takes to like attacking Jandi in like really small ways to try and break them up. And eventually Jandi's like, LOL, no, that's not gonna work. And so there's some developments with like side characters, like Kaol and Isung have like this really weird like flirty relationship. Kaol starts to catch feelings for him after he did something nice to her when a guy stood her up. So Kaol starts to like Isung, and their relationship's kind of weird because Isung is still hung up over this girl who ends up teaching Kaol how to like make pottery because that's Isung's passion. It's a really weird side plot between the two of them. Kind of cute, kind of complicated. Meanwhile, Junpyo's mom is like bullying Jandi on the low, and then eventually she realizes that attacking Jandi directly isn't gonna work, so she attacks Jandi's family, shuts down the dry cleaning business that her father owns, and somehow gets her mom fired. And the two of them are like, well, initially they're like, we're gonna try and sell things like other ways. Junpyo finds out about all of this and he's like, promise me that you're not gonna leave despite what my mom does. And she's like, I guess I promise. And she really does try to keep that promise, mind you. Someone came into the restaurant where she works and said that her face would be good for modeling, and she goes to the shoot in a really sketchy area, and I'm like, girl, you better run, you better turn around and run. She doesn't. She goes into this room and these guys are like really creepy. They get her dressed up in lingerie or like a schoolgirl outfit or something, and they start taking really weird pictures. And then she's like, yeah, I'm not down for this anymore, and they don't want to let her leave. And then this like rando who like kind of appears out of nowhere rescues her at the last second and takes her home. And he's like this mysterious model who nobody knows anything about. We're gonna call him Mr. Mysterio. And he like befriends her at school as well because he has two personas. There's the model and then there's school version of him who like wears glasses and has his hair parted differently. He looks basically the same, but model him wears dark eyeliner and coiffs his hair up and wears contacts. She realizes it's the same person and she's like, oh, cute. And he gets her into modeling in like a professional setting where she's not like at risk of being sold into sex slavery, I guess. And she like does a photo shoot with him. Like it comes out in a magazine and like everyone at school assumes that she's cheating on Junpyo with this mysterious model. And Junpyo gets mad, and granted, he's kind of mad at Jandi because he like wants to hang out with her and she keeps making up excuses as to why she can't, because she doesn't want him to know what's going on with her family and why she's like so inaccessible. And so he finds out about the photo shoot, he gets the wrong idea and starts jumping to conclusions, gets into a fight with the model because he like gets into his model persona at school and like comes into her classroom and drags her out. Junpyo runs into them in the street and like gets into a fight, and then Jandi's like, can you please stop fighting with him? They stop rumbling. She breaks up with him on the spot, and then F4 kind of like doesn't talk to her anymore because, well, she broke up with their leader. I realized the plot of this show is like actually very, very long, so I'm gonna split this video into two. I've decided this will be the end of part 1. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Hang on, before you go anywhere. At the end of all of my videos, I am going to put a question that you can drop your answer to in the comments. This week's question is, what's your favorite K-drama? Bye for real this time, and I'll see you in the next video.